Yeah. Years and years ago, when I was in my 20s, I had learned how to scuba dive. And it was one of the toughest workouts I'd ever been through. When I finished and was certified, I felt like I was in the best shape of my life.
Oh, I bet you were. That's good cardio too. That's actually one of the reasons why I'm doing it is because I was back in probably around 2009, I was diagnosed with COPD.
Oh, okay.
And so, yeah, it's very rare for, I guess, younger people to be diagnosed with that.
Right, right.
But I had a, it was pretty bad for my age. So I got to do the amazing sitting in those booths where they put you in the kind of glass booths thing and you have to do those breathing tests where you push your air. What are those called? Only had to do 3 of them my whole life. And they have you put your mouth on that thing and you push all your air out to see.
You mean that little blue tube you had to put in your mouth and you had to watch the bubble go up
Yes, I need to charge my top.
when you inhaled?
No, it was a blowout test.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they were trying to measure your lung capacity.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, so an average size female has approximately 4 to 5 liter lung capacity.
Yeah, you're not gonna use.
But yeah, so at that point they put me on Advair and Spiriva at the same time. And then my asthma therapist has taken me off of the Spiriva part of it, but I get to take Advair the rest of my life. So, and I figured I'm sorry?
Do you use albuterol?
I do. I have a nebulizer and I use the albuterol in that. And then I have a rescue inhaler and actually they just took me off of that albuterol and put me on the new, I guess it's Wexella. It was just approved for the generic.
Right.
So I just got pushed over to that. But I've been, I stay in very close contact with my doctors just because it's not anything I've ever wanted to mess with,
Yeah, well, when you have difficulty breathing, it tends to up your anxiety levels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Personally, I do experience what I would just call seasonal bouts where I get bronchitis, which to me feels a bit like asthma.
Mm-hmm.
And when it occurs, yeah, I can sympathize with you because just taking the trash out made me feel like I ran a marathon.
Oh yeah, no, I feel that a lot, but I mean, we have it under good control now. When I was in my early 30s, it was actually really bad and we got scared a few times.
Mm-hmm.
But I figure, I'm pushing 40 years old now. We have a swimming pool now. And I should probably just use it to my advantage.
Yeah, you should because that's the absolute best exercise in the world for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The problem with exercise, the way I see it, a lot of people, I was pretty physically active throughout my entire life, and I was in softball leagues, volleyball leagues, bowling leagues. I worked out at a health club, so I was pretty active. And so at my health club, year after year after year, all those people that make those New Year's resolutions about losing weight and getting in shape. So,
oh yeah.
right at the beginning of every year from January until about the 1st of March, we would see this influx of brand new members because they were wanting to come in and lose weight and get in shape. And virtually every one of them would be gone within about a month, maybe 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have a plan. They didn't know what they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Just thought by showing up in the health club that it would suddenly come to them,
Mm-hmm.
And So they didn't know what to do. Plus, the other thing is, to me, personal exercise is no longer the social event that it used to be. Personal exercise is more geared towards the solo effort. So, for instance, you're swimming laps and things like that. You don't see quite as often team sports or anything that requires more than one individual. You don't see that quite as often anymore. And in a way that's bad. Yeah, I miss those days. Okay. Alrighty, let's get started here. I think everybody
Recording in progress.
is planning on it. Okay, yesterday I did finish the lecture. I finished by going over the Keppen weather classification system, type A, type B, C, D, and E. Okay. There are each of the characteristics that I brought up yesterday are typed out into the handouts that I sent you guys. Okay. So those are all the characteristics I need you to know for each one of these climate types. Okay. Now, as far as the exam itself goes, because I did say that today I would devote to going over the exam, because once again, I'm going to be sending it out to you Monday morning. Please use the answer sheet, okay? If it's for whatever reason, technical problem, whatever, you can't print it out or you can't somehow get to it or something like that, it's okay to write the answers on a piece of notebook paper and then send that back to me. But I would prefer you use the answer sheets, okay? And please do not mark your answers on the test itself and then send the entire test back to me. Just send the answer sheet, okay? So exam 2 will be very similar to exam 1 in that there are 50 questions, 2 points apiece. So it's the same setup as it was for exam 1. The structure of the exam will look the same to you, okay? So there's a mixture of questions. So the first 5 questions on this exam are fill-in, and it has to do with atmospheric gases. Remember, variable and fixed, okay? So those are the first 5 questions on the exam. Beginning with question number 6, and going all the way to question 19. These are multiple choice questions, and so 6 to 19, that's 13 multiple choice questions, and about 5 of them have to do with that relationship between energy, frequency, and wavelength. And then there's about 5 of them that have to do, multiple choice questions now, that have to do with pressure systems, high pressure, low pressure. Some of the characteristics I wanted you to know for the exam, once again, are printed in the handouts under the diagrams. So for instance, the high pressure system in the northern hemisphere rotates clockwise. This is descending air, and it is also divergent air. So if you use any one of those terms, divergent air, descending air, you are talking about a high pressure system, okay? It's associated most often with a clear, sunny day. The only difference is in the southern hemisphere, it rotates counterclockwise, but it's still descending air, diverging air. It just rotates in a different direction. That's all. The same thing is true with a low pressure system. In the northern hemisphere, it rotates counterclockwise, and in the south, it rotates clockwise. However, they are both convergent air and ascending air. Okay. So of the 13 multiple choice questions, elect those frequency, wavelength, and energy make up about 5 of them. And then the 2 pressure systems make up about 5 of those multiple choice questions as well. Let's see.
Can you repeat that again of what goes counterclockwise and what goes?
Okay. First off, it is in the handout, Lydia, the characteristics, but once again, the high pressure system. Okay. This is descending air. It's also diverging air. In the northern hemisphere, it rotates clockwise. In the south, it rotates counterclockwise.
Thank you.
It's associated with a clear sunny day. Okay. So that's about 10 out of those 13 multiple choice questions, those 2 subjects, the pressure systems and the relationship between energy, frequency, and wavelength. Okay. Also, on one of the pages of the handouts that I sent you, everybody, specifically, let's see, there's one page in particular I'm looking for here. And of course, it's got to be like the last one I see. I'm looking for a diagram on one of the handouts, everybody. Hang on. You have a diagram in the handouts that I sent you that shows 3 boxes, and they're labeled solid and liquid and gas. Do you guys happen to have that handy in front of you?
Yes, I have mine.
And then on the top, it says the word sublimation, which, if you remember, means that you can bypass the liquid state. You can go directly from a solid to a gas or backwards. That is sublimation. You are bypassing the liquid state. So I can't seem to find my version of the diagram here. I thought I had it. But anyway, what I wanted to point out to everyone about that diagram, there is going to be a blank copy of that diagram on exam 2. And it's going to make up questions numbers 20 through 30. And they're going to be matching. Okay, so the blank diagram is going to be lettered. So for instance, I will remove all the names and numbers from the diagram and I will replace it with letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all that kind of thing. And so, you know, I'll ask you which one is the process of evaporation. And you'll pick the associated, you know, letter that goes with the line. So the process of evaporation, everybody, is that line that goes from the liquid box over to the gaseous box, and it says evaporation. Okay. So instead of the word evaporation, there will be a letter there. Okay. So anyway, that's going to make up questions 20 through 30, a blank copy of that diagram. Okay. Questions 31 through 50. So this is the remaining, 19 or 20 questions. These are true, false. And the questions are kind of scattered throughout the entire lecture series. So there's no one topic that dominates the true, false questions, okay? So know, for instance, that in the beginning of the section on pressure, I gave you 4 equivalent numbers. They all mean the same thing. They're just expressed differently. So normal sea level air pressure is either 29.92 inches of mercury, or it's 760 millimeters of mercury, or it's 1013.25 millibars, or it's equal to 14.7 pounds per square inch. Altogether, that represents 1 atmosphere of pressure. If you remember, I was reminding you, what does it mean, 1 atmosphere of pressure? If you were to somehow find yourself on the surface of the planet Venus, the pressure you would feel would be 90 times what you are currently feeling on the surface of Earth. So standing on the surface of Venus is the equivalent of 90 atmospheres of pressure. It would crush you. If you want to know just how sensitive your bodies really are to pressure, the next time you're in a swimming pool, everybody, if the deep end of the pool, I don't care if it's 8 feet, but most of them are 10 feet, swim to the bottom of the 10-foot section of the pool and feel the pressure on your ears. That's how sensitive we are to pressure. Anyway, so you need to know that those 4 numbers are equivalent to 1 atmosphere of pressure. There's some true false questions about the characteristics of the highs and the low pressure systems. And once again, I just went over it. It's rotate clockwise, it's divergent air, it's descending. Those are the characteristics I'm talking about, okay? So there's some true false questions about that. So in a true false form, high pressure systems, no, are not converging air, because that's a low pressure system. Okay. There are some true false questions about the climate types, A, B, C, D, and E. Okay. So again, refer to those characteristics that I gave you in the handout. They should answer all the questions for you. Okay. What else? There's also, our relationship with solar energy in regards to our magnetic field and our atmosphere. Of all the energy the sun puts out into space, everybody, our magnetic field protects us from most of it. It blocks most of it. A little bit gets through, and much of the rest of it is filtered out because of our atmosphere. But of all the energy that the sun puts out into space, everybody, approximately only about 1% of it actually only strikes the surface of Earth. And that 1% is basically infrared, visible light, and ultraviolet. Those are the only things that get through and strike the surface of the Earth. Okay. And then last but not least, everybody, There is a true false question on there that I have not said anything to you about because it's not really related to the lecture, but it is related to the subject. So this is not something you need to know in terms of writing notes down, or do I have to memorize it, or how the heck does it coordinate with the lecture notes. Just hear me out for a minute and you'll understand. Back in the 1980s, I worked as an electronic engineer, and I originally received my training while I was in the Navy. And I got out of the military during the first Reagan administration in the early 80s. And they were spending quite a bit of money on rebuilding the military. It was only a couple of years after Vietnam, and so the military was in need of, being modernized and reworked. So the government was spending a lot of money on updating the military and on the training of the individuals. And so when I got out of the military, there was a defense contractor job waiting for me. I had employment that very day I was discharged. And one of the companies that I went to work for, and trust me, everybody, this is related to weather. One of the companies that I worked for made and sold radar. These were navigational radars. And the company that I worked for had sold a bunch of these radars to the German Navy. Now, anytime a US company sells high technology to a foreign government, there has to be government oversight. So government inspectors have to actually come on board the ship and take a look inside all of the boxes, because there's rules, there's certain things that you cannot sell to a foreign government. And so even if they're our friends, so we had sold enough equipment to put these radars on approximately 30 of their naval vessels. So this was a lot of equipment. And we were told that we had to load all of this stuff on a ship located at the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. Therefore, government inspectors could daily take a look at this stuff and make sure that what was on the manifest was in fact what we were selling. This entire process of setting up the logistics and being in Philadelphia, everybody, took approximately 6 months. While we were there, the people that I was working for, instead of putting us up in hotels, they put us up in these duplexes. They rented these duplexes. There was about, a dozen of us that they had to put up. And so we're in this duplex, and I don't know how many of you have ever visited the Eastern United States, but neighborhoods are designed a lot differently than they are here in California. You see, neighborhoods oftentimes, they have these large green backyards, and their fences are oftentimes maybe 3 feet tall. And a lot of times there is no fence at all. The only thing that separates you from your neighbors is maybe a few hedge bushes or something like that. That's it. California, on the other hand, is all about 6-foot fences and your personal space. I don't want to know you, so go away. I'm going to put a wall up between me and the rest of the world. But you see, it's a little different in the East. And so whatever you do in your backyard, everybody, the entire neighborhood knows. So you have to be selective about what you do in your backyard. So some coworkers and I are working at this naval base trying to put together the logistics for transferring all of this electronic equipment over to Hamburg, Germany, and then put it on these Navy ships. So we're in Philadelphia for 6 months. And we had been there for approximately 2, maybe 3 months. And things were beginning to get routine. And so one Friday evening on the way home, if you've ever been on a military base, some of you may have been on the Lemoore Naval Air Station. You don't just drive through the gates. You have to stop and show an ID. You have to tell them why you're there, where you're going. So this is a Friday, and there's a bunch of people that want to get off the base and, you know, go home for the weekend. So the line to get out the gate is long. And we're sitting in our pickup truck, me and about 3 of our coworkers, and off to the side of the road, there's a garbage dump. And in that garbage dump, we found laying there out in the open, approximately 200 square feet of sheet copper. Somebody had just thrown it away. That's really expensive metal, everybody. And so because traffic was pretty much at a standstill because of everybody trying to get out the gate, we had enough time to get out of the vehicle and go over, and the 4 of us, because it was heavy, we had to drag that piece of metal because we were all electronic engineers. We understood the value of that copper. So we dragged it over to the truck and we folded it as best we could, and we stuck it in the back of the truck and we took it home. And we took it home in this neighborhood where they had rented for us. And once again, the backyard only has a 3-foot tall fence, so everybody sees what you're doing back there. So we brought this copper back there and we proceeded to turn it into a lightning machine. You see, everybody, lightning, despite what you've seen in popular news media and in magazines, lightning travels from the ground up, not the clouds down. Okay? What you see is an optical illusion. When you see a lightning strike, it appears to you that it's coming from the clouds. By the time you actually see the light, everybody, the lightning bolt has already come and gone. You can imagine how much energy it takes if you're going to arc a lightning bolt from the ground up to a cloud that is probably 15,000 feet up in the air. In order to overcome that much open air, that's a really strong electric current. So when that lightning bolt, which starts from the ground and works its way up, it is only about as wide as my finger, but it's momentarily hotter than the surface of the sun. And it is immediately heating up the air around that lightning bolt to the point where the air itself is white hot. And that's what you see as a lightning bolt. The actual electric charge has already come and gone. You are just seeing the air that has been heated up to the point where it's white hot. That's all. But it goes from the ground up. So we took the copper and we pounded it into a round ball, and we hooked it up to a motor so we could run an electric charge into the copper, and we wanted it to strike an iron bar that was pounded into the grass a few feet away from it. We were just going to create some arcs. All the neighborhood kids saw us building this in the backyard, and when we told them what it was, they became really interested, like, oh, this is cool. So every day they would come by the house when they saw us come back home from work, and they kept asking us, is it going to happen today? Is it going to happen today? And we kept telling them we didn't know. It was going to take time to build up an electrical charge in that copper ball. It had to be big enough to be able to jump over about 10 feet of open air and strike a metal bar. The problem was is that when it happened, it happened on a Monday, like right around 5:30, 5:45 in the afternoon. And by sheer dumb luck, that also happened to be right about the time of Monday Night Football. And it also happened to be our misfortune that the Redskins were playing on Monday night that night. Now, even though it's Philadelphia, there are a lot of Redskin fans in that general area. So it was a popular game. The problem was is that the electric motor that we used was just that. It was electric. We didn't want to use a gasoline motor because if as it ran, we knew this was going to take days and days to charge up, and that gasoline motor was going to need to be refilled, and nobody wanted to get near the damn thing once it started charging up. So we chose an electric motor. And this is when we got educated real fast. You see, electricity is lazy, everybody. It always takes the path of least resistance. So it's building up a charge and it's building up a charge. And instead of striking that iron bar, which basically represents 0 voltage, the 110 volt AC cord that was running the little electric motor was, electrically speaking, closer to the copper ball. So when it arced and it discharged, it hit the electric cord, which was plugged into the house. So we estimate that it discharged about 1 million volts. And as it was traveling up the AC cord, it was vaporizing it as it was moving up towards the socket in the wall. And once it hit the socket in the wall, it went completely through the house and burned all the wires inside the walls of the house. And when we went running inside the house, everywhere there was a wire running through a wall, there was an arc mark on the wall. And so we were in a bit of a panic, thinking we may have set the house on fire. So we're scrambling all over the place, lifting up tiles in the ceiling to see if we could see any smoke or anything. And that's when we heard a knock on the front door. And there was one of these 12-year-old boys standing at the front door. And when we opened the door, his first words out of his mouth were, "My daddy wants to know what you just did." And what had happened was is that when that arc went through the house, it left the house. It went out the power cable that ran up to the telephone pole, and it set the transformer on the telephone pole on fire. And we ended up blacking out 4 square city blocks in the middle of a Monday night Redskins fan game. We were not popular that night. Oh, there's a true false question about that story.
That was a great story, Professor.
Just one, though, just one true false question. Yeah. We ended up being sentenced to 100 hours of community service because within 5 minutes after this happened, at the front door, I had the local fire department, the police department, and the hazmat team, because when that transformer on the telephone pole caught fire, the oil that is inside these transformers is an environmentally hazardous material, and it's dripping all over the bottom of the telephone pole. So the judge was not too happy with us. So we each had to do 100 hours of community service, and we had to pay to replace the transformer, which in 1985 dollars was, for me personally, it was $2,500. That transformer was $10,000. So we had to divide it between the 4 of us. So I had to cough up $2,500 for that transformer.
How long were everyone out of power?
it took they're not called PG&E. It's they have a different power company, but it took their technicians probably about 8 hours to get it all back up.
Wow.
Yeah, the locals were not too happy. But you know what? When that thing went off, it was about 5:45. It was like dusk. The sun was right on the horizon. And when that thing went off, for about 3 seconds, it was noon. It was bright. It was really bright. And yeah, that's when a little bit too much knowledge can be dangerous. So I have a criminal record. Malicious mischief is what they charged us with. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about the exam?
Yeah, the
Okay.
handout that you mentioned earlier on the diagram,
Yes.
you said you didn't find the diagram, but do you know that
It's
the,
got Horace, it's got the 3 boxes, solid, liquid, and gas, and then it's got the lines connecting them. One of them says sublimation, 670 calories per gram. Another one says heat of vaporization, 590 calories per gram. There's going to be a blank copy of that diagram on this exam. And so I'm just merely going to ask, because I'm going to end up, instead of leaving the names of everything there, I'm going to substitute them with letters. So you're just going to see A, B, C, D, E, F, G on that diagram. And so I'm going to ask you such things as which one is sublimation? Well, what letter is sitting on there? Let's say it's A. So you're going to, well, that's A. That's the answer. So,
yeah, I see it. I got it. Thank you.
mhm. Any other questions?
Recording stopped.
Yes. More than the atmosphere, yes. Yes. Yeah, without our magnetic field, we would not be here because the solar wind would literally blow the atmosphere clean off the planet.
Could one of the students that has that paper show, because I'm looking through mine and I can't find it.
The diagram?
Yes, the one that the sublimation one.
All right, I'll tell you what, as soon as I log off of here, I'll go on and send a group email to the class and resend that handout that has the diagram in it.
Okay. I usually
Alright.
print every single thing out that you send me, but
That's all right, don't
I
worry.
can't find it.
I'll resend it.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Christine, it's going to be the one that's attached to calories and temperature.
Okay,
So
I'm looking through.
yeah, the 4th page on that one.
Okay, okay.
Thank you. All right, see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.